Well, Miss Taylor, why don't you talk about growing up in Acworth? I understand you were born in 1922, so you were probably the ripe old age of about 7 when the Great Depression broke out.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. What was it like in Acworth when you were a teenager?
Oh, well, it was a lively place when I was a teenager.
Was it? Even in the Great Depression, it was a lively place?
Well, see, I don't really know, even though I was in it, but we always had plenty to eat, but a lot of people didn't, especially if they had children. But it was, for most of us, it was a happy time, although we had jobs. I mean, we had to work in certain phases. And
your parents worked at the mill?
yes, my daddy went from the farm to the mill, and he ran what they called the slasher. It was a great big machine. And what else was I going to say? It was anyway, the thread was run off of these, off of something. And then the ladies...
Like a spool of thread that runs
they
off?
put it came off of this great big spool onto I don't remember exactly what, but it was all in one lump, I'll say. And they run that thread onto that big spool. And the next job, I think it was the next one, my mother worked, and it was called the drawing-in place. They drew with a needle the thread that was all messed up onto this big spool and had it straight, and and sort of spruced it up. And my mother was good at that. Well, she sewed a lot anyway.
Did the company own the house that you grew up in, or did you own your own house? Did your parents own their own house?
Well, I don't. They owned their own house. My parents did. In later years, well, not too much later, yeah, they bought they let the mill people buy the house they were living in if they wanted it.
And so
And a lot of them did.
So your parents did?
Yes. And one time we had just a little three-room house, and then other times we had better.
Well, I've heard stories before of once people bought their own house, they would really fix them up and make them really, really nice.
Yeah, they did.
Did you ever work in the mill?
I worked, yes, I worked in what they call the stock room, I think is what they called it. And they brought those great big spools in to us women. And the supervisor allotted it out. But what we had to do was with a certain type of big needle, we drew those threads one by one onto that big roller. What was that? That was called a slasher. And it was in the slasher room. And if I started thinking about it sooner, I could think of more things about it.
About how many hours a week did you work?
I guess it was about 40.
Was it by the time you were working there?
Yeah.
What was the pay like in the mill?
Good question. It seemed like it was about $30 a week or something like that. And
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
real sure.
Was there a company store where you bought things, or where did you go to buy groceries?
Good question. Well, there was, of course, most of the stores then were local, in somebody's property, on somebody's property.
Sure.
And of course, we didn't have a dime store for a long time. And then I guess Fowler's might have put up the first one in Acworth.
What did you do for fun?
Well, we played ball. I mean, and we made up our games, made up things to do. I did try to play basketball, but it wasn't my thing. But anyway, it was a good time, I'm sure some of the others can think of more things.
Well, when did you learn to play the piano? Was that real early in life?
I think I was about 9 years old, and my mother was determined that I would play the piano. So she enrolled me in Acworth, and we had the piano lessons sometime during the week. Anyway, Miss Fowler, I forgot her first name, she was the teacher. She was a good teacher, but I think of those times, and I say all the time, I'm going to start back taking music lessons. But my hands have got arthritis, so I don't know about that.
Well, did you play with a band at all, or a group, or did you play at church, or was there a group that you played with?
Well, yes, I guess I'd say yes, but Louise Carley was my teacher, and she taught music too. And I don't know, there's so much comes up you.
Well, wasn't there something about you going down to the Biltmore to play once?
Well, see, during that time, the schools, I guess it was in just the county schools maybe, they called it the district meet. Every school could represent themselves. So I represented the, what do they call it? Anyway, for our school, I represented our school, and I played the March of the Bumblebees. And I won for the school, I think I did, yeah. And it was just a different time, and it was interesting. And then, I think all of us enjoyed going to school at Acworth. And we could, we made a lot of friends in school.
Now, tell me about, I understand you started at Eli Whitney School and then you went to Acworth for high school. Is that the way it worked?
Yes, I think I was 9 years old when I started to school. And that's when the schools played, and had students from each school to play. And we went to, I know we went to WSB and played on, at that time I think they were on Channel 2 or something.
This would have been radio, I guess, wouldn't it?
It was radio, yeah. What do we?
So you played on the radio?
Yeah, I did. How about that?
Yeah.
And of course, being in the area, well, I knew just about everybody, and I represented, I played at a lot of churches, different, just just regular church hymns, And then they used to have, in all the counties, I guess, what did we call it? Anyway, it was church music. Different churches would invite us to play and sing. And there would be a lot of people singing, wanting to sing. I didn't sing because I don't have a voice for singing. But it was a good time. Of course, for the school, there was a few young men that tried to run it, but they got cut off. But
well, now I understand that your family must have been musical because your father was a bugler
in the Army.
in World War One.
World War One.
Did he continue to play after the war ended?
Yes, at different places and different times. Oh yeah, he loved that bugle. We've got it. Yeah.
Oh, you still have it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, different people come by and want to hear him play something on his bugle, But
so it was just natural for you to play the piano, I guess.
Well, I didn't want to.
Oh,
she made me.
Your mother?
Yeah. But then when I started taking music lessons at Eli Whitney, yeah, I guess that was it. What was I going to say?
Well, you were saying that you didn't want to before.
Oh, no, I didn't want to take music lessons because it was hard. To me, it was hard work. And, but everybody bragged on us.
Well, talk a little bit about the schools that you went to, the Eli Whitney School and Acworth High School. I know Mr. Sprayberry would have been there at the time that you went
Oh yeah,
through.
he was.
Could you talk a little bit about teachers or the schools themselves, or any memories that you have of going to school?
Well, I like to go to school, and Mr. Sprayberry, now I could talk all day about him.
Okay.
But
what can you tell us about Mr. Sprayberry?
Well, he had his own way of doing things, and he would come in some mornings and he'd say, good morning, class, so and so. We're going to talk about something, bees or animals or people. And, but he would give those boys a hard time. He would give them the hardest time. He would try to, he tried to get us interested in what? I can't even think. But anyway, he would come in, he'd say, "Good morning, class. All right, pencil and paper, first question, second question." And he would be going so fast we couldn't get it written down. But he was a great man.
Did he give the boys a harder time than the girls?
Oh, he did, yeah. He did.
Why do you think that was so?
I wonder.
Because they needed a harder time?
They needed to talking to. No, it was a good time.
Now, is this where you learned Latin, was going through school? Did you study Latin?
Yeah, I studied Latin when I was in the 8th grade, I think.
Was that one of your favorite subjects?
Well, after I got used to it and started using it a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Latin still is one of my favorites.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you still read anything in Latin?
Well, yeah, but I'd have a harder time. I'm not as good as I thought I was. Well, although I did win for the class, for
You had a competition?
Well, I don't know how many schools were represented. I didn't pay that much attention to it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we got through it.
Well, let me see. You must have graduated from high school about 1939, maybe. Does that sound about right?
1940, I think.
1940.
I think it says on there something.
Yeah, it actually does. Graduated in 1940.
What about that?
So, I guess you were, well, that'd be about 17 years old, I guess, when you graduated.
About that. It might vary a little, but.
Uh-huh. So, did you go to, is that when you went to work for Allen's Five and Dime after you graduated from high school?
I think so.
Okay. Well, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I didn't get started on this until this morning. I do plan to write a book. I don't know whether I'll ever get it finished or not, but it's a lot of funny things happened. Well, you know how a 15-year-old or the boys say we're always up to something. Mr. Sprayberry was pretty rough on them. Mm-hmm. But we loved him. He was.
What were some of the funny things that went on in the school?
Well, I can't remember now.
Did you go to a lot of parties?
Well, we had school parties. And then that was about the time that they started in cities putting up the, what do you call them? Well,
like a canteen?
No, it was the stores would put it in some, something like Kmart, only it wasn't big like Kmart. Some of the older filling stations would have some toys to sell. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the teachers were always having some kind of program started, and of course we students, we liked them to do anything to keep us from having to speak. It was a fun time. But
Well, talk about Allen's Five and Dime. Could you really buy things for a nickel inside there?
well, yeah, I'm sure we did, and for a dime. Well, Hubert Allen was something. He had, I guess he started the dime store, the nickel doings. So I can remember.
Is that what you called it, a dime store? Or a five and dime?
5 and 10 mostly.
5 and 10.
Well, you know, everybody did something different.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll talk about getting paid. Did you get paid once a week or
I think we did.
once a week? And they didn't write a check for you, did they?
No, all I can remember, most of what I can remember about that is Hubert counting out dollar bills.
So you got paid in $1 bills?
I think we did. I'll ask somebody. But who else now? Well, you know, Mr. Hull had jewelry too in his store. And I know Santa Claus brought me a watch from Hull's store. And, of course, my mother and daddy, or my grandparents, lived in the country over off of Cowan Road, I think. And, of course, there was a lot of churches around then. And
Which church did you go to?
well, when I was growing up, my grandparents went to a country church called, do you remember the name? Oak Grove.
Oak
It was,
Grove?
yes, it's close to that, what's that called, school out there?
Baker Elementary? Or?
Well, it's Baker or something, I think, but I never did go there. Only visited with one of my cousins, I think.
And there's a Hickory Grove out that way.
Oh, yeah, it's the oldest one.
Now, I've got a note about Shady Grove Church.
Well, that's the one that my mother and daddy went to.
Shady Grove?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think when they were growing up, they went to Oak Grove, maybe.
Oak Grove, okay.
Yeah, we had to go to church.
Had to go.
I had to go, yeah. When Daddy said so, we had to go. But we made a lot of friends at different churches and.
And then later on, you played the piano at the different churches. Is that right?
Yeah, they used to have what they called all-day singings at all the churches. And usually one of the deacons would lead the singing. And that was interesting.
Did they have any of the shape note singing?
Well, that's what Shady Grove was. They were written with shape notes. But I tell you, if you don't understand it, maybe you're thick-headed like I am. But we all got along well. And
Well, you were telling me a little bit earlier about working at the Bell Bomber plant for a few months during World War II.
World War II, yeah.
How did you get that job? Where did you go to apply?
We went down to the, what did they call it? Well, it was like a church, but it was, first I think it was called a community house, and they used to have, I think that maybe they had some dances and programs, you know. So we had to participate if we were in that grade.
Uh-huh.
And well,
Tell me a little bit about working at Bell Aircraft. What did you do at Bell?
well, what I did, I was in what they call the finishing room, and they would give us paperwork to sort and to put in envelopes. And we thought it was a big job.
So you did a lot of sorting and filing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what I did.
And you worked with blueprints some as well?
We did because, see, we were right next to the engineering department. Well, what was I going to say? Anyway, when we got our filing done and mailing out if we had any literature to mail out, everything. And that, you know, was a pretty big job to us to even file in envelopes, you know.
Well, I bet the pay was a lot better there than you were accustomed to, wasn't it?
I'm sure it was, yeah, because I went to work then for, what did I say a while ago?
Well, we talked about the 5 and 10 Allens, and somewhere along the line you went to work at Unique Knitting Mill also.
Let's see, I did that. I think when I first, right after I graduated.
Oh, I see.
I believe I worked there before I worked at the dime store.
I see.
I think I was going over all that, but I didn't get through.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Unique, we got along real well. It was just women that were in that finishing department doing that type of work. But they were always getting up something to do, maybe a little party or something. But, you know, we thought it was good. We enjoyed it because we had, us young girls, had never been accustomed to many parties, because this really, well, I don't remember the name, what they used to call it. But anyway, there was a lot of church singing, you know, and
So you had a good time growing up and as a young adult, it sounds like.
well, yes. Yeah, I'm glad I did have that experience.
How did you get down to the bomber plant? Did you drive down, or did you carpool together? Or did you ride a bus? How did you get down to Marietta to work at Bell Bomber?
I rode with some other people that drove to Marietta.
And then you parked in did you remember going through those tunnels to get into the plant?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something that happened that we. I just can't remember all of it.
That's all right. How do you think that World War II and the Bell Bomber plant changed Cobb County, changed this area?
And what?
How did it change this area? Were there a lot of newcomers to the area at that time, or
Well, in our department, it seemed like there were more women,
Mhm.
and yeah, there were a lot of new people coming in, and
Okay, that's good. And then you worked for AT&T for 33 and a half years,
and I'm still there.
and you're still there. So
Well,
you retired from AT&T?
yeah,
And that was downtown Atlanta that you
yeah, in the Hurt Building.
oh, really? In the
Yeah,
Hurt Building, okay. Yeah, I've been inside that building. It's a real nice building. Where did you go? You rode the Greyhound bus. Where did you get on the bus? Was there a station up here in Acworth?
Fowler Store.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was uptown. The bus stopped uptown, and most of us that rode it were waiting for it to come along.
Right. About how long did it take to get downtown from here?
It took a good while. I know I got on the bus, I think, down at Fowler's Store. Of course, the bus stopped in Acworth in town and got a lot of people.
What time in the morning would you have to be there to ride the bus?
Well, I'd say about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, because we went to work at 8.
You had to be at work at 8?
There was a time that we did.
We'll talk a little bit about working for AT&T. What did you do for them?
Same thing. With AT&T, I went to Atlanta to get, I'd read about something in the paper about AT&T, and so I went down and put in my application to work. But I thought all the time I was working that it was Southern Bell until we'd started doing the paperwork and I had to apply at AT&T.
Yeah, I guess it was Southern Bell then, wasn't it?
You know, I don't know when it changed over to. I worked for AT&T. I've done a little work with Southern Bell, but not much. And it was a good job. It was, of course, there's always some that you don't jihad with. Yeah. But it, now some of the people, especially the men, some of them I think after they retired went back and hired in to do, well, just certain types of work, maybe training some of them about, well, that part of AT&T was mostly training the older ones that had retired. Maybe they got some little jobs they want done and they hire them back. I'm not a very good representative of them, but anyway, it was good. And you meet all kind of people. We had all races, you know. And it was a good place to work. If they had put a station down here, so I could have caught my bus close to our house. It'd been better.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't by chance work for a phone company, did you?
No, never did.
Well,
No, I worked at Kennesaw State University for my career.
ah,
So. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about how Acworth has changed over the years? Is it a very different place today from what it used to be like, or is it pretty much the same, do you think?
you mean the work?
Just the
Just
town
the
itself and the people and the stores and everything. How would you say Acworth has changed over the years?
Oh, it has changed. Of course, there are always, the old stores. And then the new Kmart and all that started coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But as a place to live, and most of the areas that I know about are good places
Mm-hmm.
to work and to live. Because most of us help each other when we can. And of course, the city of Acworth, well, there's been some killings, and there's been, some suicides too.
Mm-hmm.
Around Kennesaw and Acworth, and especially in Canton, around Canton.
Mm-hmm.
But we always managed to get by.
Yeah.
I never did have to get into a fight.
Well, I think I'm about out of questions, unless there's anything else that you'd like to talk about.
Well, I don't know. Now, do you know Rachel Harper?
No, I don't think
She
so.
was she was one of my teachers.
Oh, talk about her.
Well, what can I say? She was a likable person, but she was strict on some of us.
Was she strict on you?
Well, I don't. I just remember one time when I sat down in the wrong aisle in school, and I don't know.
Uh-huh. What did Miss Harper teach? What subject?
She taught English, because she taught, I know I was in her class.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing though, when the school, well, all the schools were supposed to send a representative and take a Latin test. And I had to go to Canton. The school, no, I think it was Canton or Rome. One time we went to Rome, but let me think. Oh, we liked to talk in Latin, and of course the teacher wasn't going to allow that unless it was in the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mr. Leverett was the ball coach, and he taught algebra too. And but I can't think of nothing. But my mother wanted me to play the piano so bad. She made me take music lessons, and I took the lessons from Miss Fowler. She taught at school, too. Excuse me. And, well, like I said, believe it or not, I won for Acworth.
That's great.
By playing, I tell you what I played on the piano was the March of the Bumblebees.
Could you still play it today?
I doubt it. I haven't tried to play in sheet music in a good while, but I always say I'm going back to it.
Well, maybe you will someday.
Yeah.
Well,
If I don't get arthritis too bad in my fingers.
Well, I think we've maybe done enough for today.